In the Unresolved Problems segment tonight, Trump has made several bold selections for his incoming administration, and he's said to be considering some surprising names for other top jobs. That potentially includes 2012 GOP nominee Mitt Romney for Secretary of State. Romney strongly opposed Trump's candidacy in the Republican primary, and while some are praising Trump for attempting to unite the party, others, like Newt Gingrich, are much more critical.
I would be concerned, one, I think the vast majority of Trump's supporters will initially be very unhappy and will be reminded of all the things that Romney said over the year. And two, because Romney does represent a very different viewpoint. I mean, authentically, I'm not sure whose Secretary of State he would be. I can think of 20 other people who would be more naturally compatible with the Trump vision of foreign policy.
Right. Joining us now for reaction from Washington, Kelly Ridell, a Washington Times columnist, and from Columbus, Ohio, Chabria, a Republican strategist and former senior advisor to Ohio Governor John Kasich. Jay, we'll start with you. Now, these names are swirling. I need to point out, though, the three names that were floated today, two seem to be locked down. One is still apparently up in the air. Ben Carson, African-American. Then we have Nikki Haley, a female, also of, I believe, Indian descent. Also, Betsy DeVos. These are women and people who were anti-Trump. The man, they claim to be having such a thin skin or elected by white males. I don't know. He seems to be picking people who are surprising a lot of people.
Well, look, I think Betsy DeVos is a fantastic pick, and I think children are going to really benefit from that pick. Let's go to Ben Carson, though. Ben Carson, as he showed through the campaign, didn't have a real firm grasp on policy, didn't have a firm grasp on how government works. He himself, I mean, Armstrong Williams, his business manager, said earlier this month that he is not qualified for holding a government, to running a government agency. And he actually said that he could cripple the presidency. Those are not words that you really want to hear from a cabinet secretary. So that's the kind of thing I question. This is not fantasy football. I actually had the opportunity to pick cabinet directors for the state. You really have to pick them with their skill set, with the policy knowledge that they have, and that's one that worries me.
I'm sorry.
I'll let you jump in here, but it worries you for HUD Secretary. Maybe some of these issues were when Ben Carson was considered a possibility for Surgeon General, no?
Well, he said that he couldn't run a government agency, is what Armstrong Williams was saying.
All right, fair enough. Let me bring Kelly in. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, well, you know, Ben Carson is one of the more respected, compassionate voices in the GOP right now. And you know what? Housing policy is not brain surgery. I think that Ben Carson can get around it. He was one of the first advocates in Donald Trump's campaign that brought Donald Trump to Detroit to speak to the African-American communities, to build up these urban cities, and to reach out to these voters that, quite frankly, Republicans have been doing a very poor job at doing. You know, at HUD, they're responsible for about 2.2 million people in public housing, as well as maintaining grants for homelessness.
Right,
so
Kelly.
I'm
going to stay with you, Kelly. Though, let's talk a little bit about two people. We heard about the potential for Mitt Romney to be part of the administration, and also Nikki Haley. These are two people who are anti-Trumpers straight through. You got to give the man, Mr. Trump, at least credit for listening to people who were against him for the better part of the 18 months.
Yes, and this reminds me a lot of Lincoln's cabinet when he named three, cabinet members that were adversaries for him. Now, with Mitt, I think that what Mr. Trump is looking to do is to really put a stake in the heart of the Never Trump movement, to unite all Republicans together and then be the president for all people. And this is one of the key things in doing this. Now, Mitt Romney was very personal. His attacks were very venomous, and they were very personal attacks. So if he does if Donald Trump does give him this position, I would like to hear from Mitt Romney and how he's changed his tune a little bit and how gracious he would be in accepting the role as Secretary of State. There cannot be two CEOs running this country.
Okay, that's a very good point, Kelly. What about it, Jay? If Mitt Romney is tapped to do that, should he step to the podium? I think he said Mitt Romney owes Donald Trump an apology before he accepts any cabinet position.
Look, I'm hoping beyond hope that Mitt Romney is the Secretary of State, because right now the foreign policy team is very, very thin.
Can I say with you, stop, Jay, for 1 second. How can you have a Mitt Romney Secretary of State when Donald Trump is pretty much a non-interventionist? He stated this straight through, and then you have Mitt Romney, who likely is completely different, opposite when it comes to foreign policy. How can you have him representing America?
Look, he's going to bring a tremendous amount of gravitas to the position. When you've got a national security advisor like General Flynn.
Gravitas doesn't keep us out of wars, Jay. Gravitas doesn't keep our young men and women from being sent to foreign soil, fighting wars that maybe the president isn't even in favor of.
Mitt Romney has never been considered a warmonger by any sense. I don't think he's a nation builder. I think he will bring a lot to the table. We've got a guy like Mike Flynn it's in Donald Trump's ear, and that concerns me. I talked to a former Reagan National Security Advisor today, and he was very concerned by the Mike Flynn pick. I mean, today in the Sydney Morning Herald, there was an article today about...
He's an advisor. He's a national security advisor. He's not a cabinet secretary. Guys, I'm running out of time. Kelly, final word.
No, I just think it's wonderful that we'll be able to say radical Islamic terrorism with this administration and not feel bad about it, and that's because of Mike Flynn, and that's because of Donald Trump.
No, we'll leave it right there. Jay, Kelly, thank you very much. Have a great Thanksgiving. Plenty more ahead as the factor moves along this evening.